Hi there, and welcome to 272analytics.com's tutorial on a basic introduction to the Stata interface. So I have a version of Stata open right here in front of me. This is what you will get when you open up Stata on your own computer. And in order to get the best use of this tutorial, let's load an actual data set so we can look around in it. Here, this window, and this is a great opportunity to introduce you to the command window. Down here, separated by a line, we have the window in Stata where you can type commands basically and tell the data set to do specific things. So in this case, I've typed a command web use census 13, and as a result of that command, I've actually loaded a data set which I can access when I enter edit into the command window. So now you're looking at the data editor portion of the Stata interface, and this is where you see the actual data set. So this is pretty easy to understand. If you've worked with Stata or SPSS, this is just the portion of the data that you can actually see and you can interact with. And there's a reason for that, which is that you are in edit mode right now by default, I believe. Now, if you switch that to browse, you'll get a little warning, and now you can't make changes. If you hear those little beeps, and even if you can, that's me trying to change numbers here. I can't do it. So I'm going to go ahead and go on back to edit mode, and again we get the warning so you don't overwrite anything by accident. And now let's look at these windows over here. So we see a variable window, and if you click on each variable, there's a little box even further down here where you get more information about that variable. You have its name, its label, its type. Here it's integer, format, and there are numerous formats in Stata, including for time series and things like that. And so basically, when you scroll up and down here, you get information about what you're looking at within the variables. And we haven't taken snapshots yet, so that's not something to worry about. But focus on this part here where I'm showing you the variables. That is what we will, for the most part, be focused on when you're just learning, what Stata is all about, what the interface is about. Let me pull this up a little bit so you can see that down here we have some information, we have some summary information, the number of variables, the number of observations, and we can just quickly here see that we are in edit mode. So if you can, make a note of that. Now, let's go back here, and I want you to notice that the statistics command that's up here, this is the value in Stata, is of course this stuff. A lot of the other material is for housekeeping, record keeping, that kind of thing. This is where you really get to tell Stata to do stuff. Now I want you to notice that you can access that from here. So when you're either in edit or browse, you can't really do much of anything other than housekeeping up here using these commands. So when you're ready to tell the data set to do something, you're going to have to come here to this window, and then you have a couple of options. And our bias here at 272 Analytics has been to demonstrate use of the command window, because this is where you type in basically code, and it's just so much more efficient. You can duplicate it, you can keep records of it, you can prevent your actual data set from being changed because you can keep the commands sort of separate. But for a lot of people, they want to start over here because maybe they began with Excel, or they began with SPSS, and they're used to being able to use the graphic user interface to doing stuff. And by the way, it works just fine. That was off the window, but I pulled up summary statistics, for example, and then you get a little dialog box here. For example, I'm just picking 3 types of summary statistics, and I'm going to press OK. And so using that graphic component, you can go ahead and do a lot of stuff from there. But you can't get into the elegant, efficient writing of commands there. You can't. It's really a one-time thing, and if you rely on nothing but that, you won't necessarily get very far with Stata. And even if it's a relatively modest project in terms of these statistics involved, nonetheless, if you're looking at a thesis or even a pretty complex undergraduate project, you're going to get a lot more return by just taking a little bit of extra time to teach yourself to use this command window first. Now, when you go further, there's actually a do file editor that you'll also learn to utilize. This is not immediately apparent to a lot of folks because you might just type your commands directly here, or you might type them into, let's say Microsoft text editor and then copy and paste them there. But what you really should do is use this do file format that Stata has with the do file editor. And basically here you can type in, any kinds of commands that you want, and Stata keeps a record of what you've done here. And when you're done, you basically you save this file, and when you want to run it, you just come over here and click execute. And if you saw behind me that I actually was able to direct that do file to do something here in the window, specifically to get detailed summary statistics on population and birth rate. So the real benefit of a do file is going to become apparent when you need to keep track of stuff, maybe insert some comments to yourself, like that kind of thing. Because if you don't need that kind of complexity, if you don't need to deal with that, then you can go ahead and use Notepad in Microsoft Word. Some people write in Microsoft Word and then they go over to the Notepad. I just use the Notepad directly, and I'll just pull my window over here to show you. So this is Notepad, and I could go ahead and just type in whatever commands I wanted here, and then I could save them. And then when I pull this up, I could have numerous commands written here, which I could copy, and I'm just going to do 2 for now, which I could copy from here and directly paste into the command window, press enter. And so each of those commands has been executed. Now, when you're in the command window, you cannot enter a command and then press enter and then do another sequential command. Like when you press enter, Stata will treat that as a command to execute. So you have to use a do file if you want to do a whole bunch of sequential stuff. And believe me, it saves a lot of time. If you have to pull up 10 tables or 20 results or something like that, you do not want to sit here and write again and again and again, or copy and paste in command. You want to be able to paste in a whole bunch of commands at once. Press execute if you're in the do file, or enter if you're in the command window, and have it all get done at once. So the thing is, you're really going to learn a lot more about this interface by using it, and it would be remiss of me to try to show you everything all at once. The basic idea I want you to get is to focus in on the command window as being really by far the most important component of the Stata interface. And that sounds counterintuitive because most people will want to focus on the actual data, and isn't this the most important part of the file? Well, not really, because when you really get going in Stata, what you'll do is you won't manipulate the data files directly that much. You'll come up with a file, you will save it. That file is going to basically take on a fixed canonical form. And in your text file editor or in your do file editor, that is where you're going to write all of the commands that you can apply to the data set whenever you want. And then let's say that if as part of those commands you have created a directive to create a new variable or something, then you might want to go ahead and resave that file as something else. But if you have let's say if you have a static data set that's not really going to change, you've created all the variables you're going to create, the idea is to separate out the data from the commands that are applied to the data, and the command window is where all of that happens. So once your data take on their form, they'll be fixed. They'll just stay like this. And here is where you're going to be going to tell the data to sort of do things. And so all our existing Stata tutorials in 272analytics.com are, to the extent possible, all commands, all written down. We've tried not to use the graphic user interface at all, because that's the best way to learn Stata. Now, the final thing I'd like to leave you with is go ahead and browse around here. There's a ton of things that you can do in the interface, and we can't go over all of them. You can stop and get help over here. You can create graphics separately from statistics. But I sound like I'm repeating myself here, but I'm just going to remind you one more time. The command window is what you should focus on. Once you're a master of entering commands and telling Stata to do stuff here by writing it rather than by using these point and click methods, that's when you're on your way to being really good at this software. I hope this tutorial was helpful to you, and I would like to invite you to visit 272analytics.com for access to all our free statistics tutorials in Stata, SPSS, R, eViews, and Minitab. Here at 272analytics.com, we provide data consulting primarily to graduate students. Therefore, we work very closely with you in order to perfect your Chapter 3 and Chapter 4. That means helping you design surveys, getting your data input, assisting you with fashioning appropriate research questions and hypotheses, getting your data, extracting them, transforming them, cleaning them, putting them through analysis, interpreting them, explaining them to you, so that at the end of the day, you know exactly what story your data tell, why they matter, what they mean, in a manner that lets you write a perfect Chapter 4 following a perfect Chapter 3, and lets you defend your dissertation or thesis with complete confidence. We provide ethical consulting. It's not a writing service, so you will be responsible for taking our blueprint, our assistance, our consulting, and transforming them into an appropriate academic project for yourself. I'd also like to remind you that we provide the same services to undergraduate students who are working with quantitatively oriented assignments. Thank you so much for listening, and have a great day.